So good morning on a lovely Wednesday morning. Welcome. Today I am really delighted to have with us one of our key employers, Costain, who are going to share with you different areas of their business. So I hope you have a brew in hand, sit back, enjoy. Over to you, Angela.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Buildforce Virtual Career Chats. I am Angela Forbes, and it's a pleasure to welcome you this morning. So thank you for dialing in. As Caroline said, we are in the beautiful autumnal month of October. It's a lovely day where she is, and it is one of my favourite months. As the seasons change, the nights get longer, so it's time to cuddle up. Now, also this month, and others in need of a cuddle, on Monday, it's World Mental Health Day. So this year's theme is for mental health and well-being to become a global priority for all. Now, as we know, there's still a stigma and discrimination around this area, and that does create a barrier for people to get help. However, we can all play our part in increasing awareness about what interventions and good practice works for us. So World Mental Health Day is an opportunity to do that collectively, to be vocal about what we do to safeguard and protect our mental health and well-being. So Bernie and I will be chatting to the Bath Half Marathon team led by Caroline, who are currently training for their event on the 16th of October. So look out for that chat, but don't be shy. On Monday, share with us on social media what you do to promote and manage your mental health. It may just spark a thought or give some inspiration to someone who needs it. Now, for our chat this morning, we welcome Costain. So they're incredibly proud of their 157-year heritage, and during that time, they have accumulated a global portfolio of award-winning projects. And we just need to look around us here within the UK to see the Channel Tunnel and Crossrail, London St Pancras Station and HS2, all helping them be named Contractor of the Decade. So we extend a very warm welcome to the Costain team this morning. So we will hear from three veterans, Neil Osborne, Becky York and Philip Carrott, and from their recruitment manager, Claire Blackburn. We'll take questions at the end, but feel free to write in any comments as we go. Without further ado, I'll hand over to Neil and we'll switch our cameras off, Neil.
Hi, good morning, everybody. Welcome. Thank you for coming along. I've got my assistant with me this morning, which highlights one of the benefits of working for Costain, which is dynamic working. So apologies if there's any outbursts. It's not just me. So I think we'll just skip through the slides and see what we're going to cover today. So we're going to give you just a quick introduction from myself, a bit about Costain, what our purpose is, what we're all about as an organisation. Claire's going to talk about some of the priority roles that we have within the organisation, and then Becky and Phil are going to give you some background on themselves, their career journeys, and how they've worked from the military through into the construction industry here. And then I'll just finish off with some of the benefits of working at Costain. First of all, I'll give you an introduction to me. So I'm at Costain in the digital side of the business as an agile project manager and scrum master. My background from the military point of view is that I was in the Royal Navy as a warfare officer, specialised in navigation, excuse me, and came from a military family, with my father being in the military for 35 years, so followed in his footsteps there. So really interesting career, going around the world, navigating warships, destroyers down in the Falklands, mine hunters in the Gulf. I left the Navy in 2017 and did a bit of a classic transition, doing about 3 roles before settling in one that I'm really happy with now. So went through all the career transition partnership training, which was great. Found myself a role in operations management at Gatwick Airport, which was a really interesting first step into the civilian world. I then joined the Ex-Forces programme with an organisation called FDM, who you may have come across in your research. A really good programme that got me into some project management skills, and then went and did a couple of roles, firstly at the MOD as a project programme manager, and then at DEFRA, which was my first step into digital. Right, my child has just eaten something, so that's good. Can I have that, please? Thank you. Sorry. And then DEFRA was my first step into digital. Realised that was a really good area to be in, really interesting, something that I enjoyed, and an opportunity came up at Costain. So I've been here just over a year now, and since then I've been involved in a couple of really big projects with the Department for Transport and other big kind of big clients for Costain, and since then I've also become chair of one of the employee networks at Costain, the Services and Service Families Network, which supports ex-military and blue light personnel across the business, and also part of the reason that we're involved with Build Force. It's a big focus for the organisation, supporting this community that we're all a part of. So that's a bit about me, but what you want to know is a bit about Costain, and that's up next. So why Costain? What's our background? As was mentioned at the start by Angela, we've got a long history. Founded in 1865, started in kind of traditional construction, but over the years have gone from construction to infrastructure specifically, and then digital infrastructure much more recently. We're a business with a very clear purpose, vision, and mission. The purpose being to improve people's lives. It's as simple as that. And I think that we try to live that every day. The vision to create a connected, sustainable infrastructure enabling people and the planet to thrive. Understandable. And the mission is to shape, create and deliver pioneering solutions that transform the performance of the infrastructure ecosystem. So we're really living that infrastructure piece. And we're doing this across three kind of key areas. Complex program delivery, which is really encompassed by some of those areas that were mentioned at the start, so HS2, Crossrail, things like that. Consulting and digital, where I work. So there's really broad areas of sectors and opportunities. It's not just one industry that you'd be getting into at Costain. It's a really, really broad picture, which is great to be a part of. So next up is kind of the people, the values, the behaviours. We've got a really strong culture and embedded values and behaviours. It underpins everything we do to improve people's lives. And that's what it all comes back to. People are at the heart of it all. And we've always got that purpose that we come back to. And these are some of our core values and behaviours. We've gone through a process relatively recently to update these and make sure that they're still relevant. So these are relatively new to the business in this format, but something that you'll recognise from your careers past. But one thing we try and do is everything we do with our bids for work, our internal work, is we're trying to tie that all back to these core values and ensure that everything we do is reflected by these core values. And it's all about people and a focus on sustainability, the environment, and that ties back to making sure that the future is good for future generations. So looking at Costain as a business, we've mentioned that the business was established over 150 years ago. So a huge heritage as a UK kind of centralised business, but we do work across the world as well. So we're around 3,500 employees at the moment, a range of disciplines and different stages of career. So we're not just that core construction, we've got the consulting, complex programmes, digital elements, and one that I'm really highlighting at the moment that we do focus on is a dynamic working environment. Lots of projects across the UK adopting hybrid working. When I started, I was fully remote. I've been to a variety of offices, and that's a really good opportunity to be able to do that with offices and projects across the country. And that's a really key part of making sure our people within the business are happy, healthy, and living the best work-life balance as possible. We have 6 employee network groups within the business. I'm the chair of the Services and Service Families Network, but we've also got a Disability and Wellbeing Network, an LGBT plus network, Religion, Ethnicity and Cultural Heritage, Parenting and Carers, and Women's Networks. So trying to be really inclusive and understand the needs and desires of these diverse groups. Looking at that wellbeing piece, mental health first aiders, we're a signatory to the Mental Health at Work commitment, so really important focus for the business. And we're also one of the top 50 employers for women and one of the top leading management consultancies in the country as well. So really trying to live that people at the heart of the business piece. As was mentioned at the start, we've got that focus of improving people's lives. You may not have heard of Costain before you started doing your research or before coming along to this call, but you'll certainly recognise some of those organisations that we work with, delivering huge projects and programmes for. HS2, Crossrail, they're some of the biggest ones that you recognise. The Channel Tunnel, a number of years ago now, and a huge amount of government, central and local authority government pieces as well. So we're working all the way down from that top level of central government down to local authorities, infrastructure owners and operators, all the way down to those small, medium enterprises, people who deliver small technology, other consultants. So we're really covering a number of bases with our work. And what we were trying to tie that into is kind of our goals as a responsible business. And this is really important and something that people are looking for at the moment, and something that we absolutely have to live up to if we're saying that we're here to improve people's lives. So what are we trying to do? Listening to stakeholders, we've made 3 pretty big commitments. So we want to create a greener future. How are we doing that? So carbon net zero goals, eliminating waste through the circular economy, positive biodiversity impact, and we have loads of internal and external projects that are looking about that biodiversity impact. We know that as a construction and infrastructure business, we're having a big impact on biodiversity. So what can we do to negate that? We're looking to make sure that Costain's a safe and inclusive place to work, where everyone can be at their best. So real focus on safety, and we're having a leadership impact day that's all focused on health and safety tomorrow. But also we've got those employee networks, we've got that well-being at the heart, making sure everyone's happy and included. And then we're looking to enhance the value that Costain contributes to society. So reducing time on site, reducing cost, and spending specifically with small businesses, social enterprises, focusing on the smaller community. And we have people whose sole role is to be that liaison with communities that we will engage with, trying to ensure that we're contributing to society and improving people's lives on a daily basis with the work that we do. So hopefully that gives you a bit of a flavour. We've got a real historical background with the business, but we're trying to be very modern and keeping up with the times, and developing as we go, making sure that we stay at the forefront of well-being and safety. So I think we'll hand back now and then move on to the next part, which will be of even more interest to you when we start talking about roles.
Good morning. My name's Claire Blackburn. I'm Recruitment Manager for Energy and Defence and Nuclear in Costain. My journey in the industry started almost 20 years ago now. I was doing my Masters in Civil Engineering at Costain at Cardiff University, and I started my year in industry with Costain in 2003 to 2004. They then sponsored me through my last 2 years, and I rejoined Costain in 2006 as a graduate civil engineer. I worked on a wide variety of projects across the highways, water, defence and nuclear sectors before I joined the recruitment team in 2020. What I really enjoy about my role now is that I'm really able to bring my on-site construction background and knowledge to be able to fill each role with someone who has the right skills, attitudes and behaviours for the role, rather than just someone that's got the job title on their CV. So talking about that, let's move on to how your application helps us understand what roles you could do at Costain. We understand that not everyone meets all the requirements specifically set out for our roles, but you may have the skills that we didn't know that we needed. When you're applying for your role, please make sure that you cover the following points. So transferable skills, this is where you need to be really clear about how your skills that you have can transfer into the construction industry. For example, that you've got good written and oral communication skills, that you've got good people management and leadership skills, and also that you're then a good team player. And also maybe that you have the ability to plan ahead and be able to foresee issues and opportunities. And the understanding of construction techniques and methodologies is obviously a bonus for our industry. Also make sure that you cover your qualifications and training. Alongside any educational qualifications, make sure you cover any vocational training that you've had, that you go through during your transition.
Acronyms, every industry loves its acronyms, and they're often quite different and have the same for different industries. So please try and reduce that so that we can really make sure that the hiring managers really understand what roles you've been doing and what skills you have. Match your skills and experience to the job that you're applying for. Review the job description, go through each point, really think about what you've done and how you can bring that to what we need. Tailor your CV each time. So if you're applying for slightly different roles, it's not that we want you to lie, it's that we really want you to bring out the key skills for each of the different roles. Highlighting exactly your experience, what that brings to that role. It's really helpful for us to know your location preferences, whether it's a certain distance away from home that you're able to travel every day, whether you're able to stay away for a few nights a week, a month, or whether you'd like a fully remote role. That really helps us fit you to the role. Availability, obviously, most of the roles that we put out, we would like to fill within a month or so. But if we understand when you are available, we can then put you into a candidate pool and then match you to roles as they arise. And lastly, build your network, really create your personal brand. LinkedIn is a great tool for this. It's what we use. Grow your networks, and they also have groups within LinkedIn that offer advice for people changing industries and, you know, kind of looking for their next role in their career. So if I just give you a little bit, you've had a lot of background about Costain from Neil, but if I just go through how the business is split up. So we have two divisions. We have a transportation division where we have our rail, aviation and highway sectors. We then have our natural resources division that's made up of our water, energy and defence and nuclear sectors. And then across all of those sectors, we then have the roles and the departments that make up our roles. So if I start with P3M, so Programme, Project and Portfolio Management, where we really work with our clients to help deliver and transform and control their projects. So we've got lots of kind of different level of consultants that can really help support our clients. Risk roles, so where we help develop and implement solutions to support our clients and improve their performance and assurance for programme delivery. Digital roles, again, as Neil's touched on, so where we help engineer integrate digital solutions into our projects. Project controls, where we cover estimating, planning, cost and risk management to ensure the successful outcome for all our projects. Commercial, providing commercial support to our business, including quantity surveyors, commercial managers. Construction and site management, this is obviously a large part of our business where we deliver the complex infrastructure projects. We have roles such as site supervisors, construction managers, engineers, project managers, and many more. Finance roles, where we manage the procurement and our supply chain, covering accounts assistants, finance managers, and many more. The human resources department, so cover all aspects of our support for our employees, covering recruitment, administration, HR advice. We then have our design department to ensure the design of our projects is effectively managed. We have roles that cover design managers and then design engineers in civil engineering, structural engineering and mechanical and electrical. And then we have safety, health, environment and quality. This is obviously quite self-explanatory, but it covers roles such as health and safety advisors and managers and environmental advisors, quality engineers and managers. And that's it for me. I'll pass back to Angela.
Good morning. So I'm Becky York. I'm a proposals manager as part of Work Winning. So I previously served in the Royal Marines Band Service for over 14 years as a piano and clarinet player. You'll see the picture there is from the Olympics parade in 2012 going through London. If you look towards the top, you can see all the buses, all the athletes on, and I'm in the rear rank, bottom right, second from the right, sorry. So got a line going through my head there. And one thing I really love about this picture is that it shows as forces personnel the attention to detail that we've got, in that we've just marched for 2 miles. We've been out for an hour and a half and we're still in that absolute perfect formation, because that's how we're trained to be. That's what we do. So having those transferable skills, you kind of look at it and go, how on earth do I go from marching through London to then having a different career? So unfortunately, I got injured as part of my job and I had a medical discharge in 2017. At the time, I was still undergoing quite significant rehabilitation, surgery, and I also had the mental aspects to deal with as well as the physical. Since leaving, I've had multiple roles. I think Neil alluded to earlier that he'd had 3 roles before he got to where he is. You'll see on the next slide that I've been through significantly more in the last few years, but a lot of that is the process of leaving. As I was leaving, I got involved with the Royal Marines charity because of my injury, and one of the best pieces of advice I was given was consider going for the job which presents the most opportunity, not necessarily the most money. And that's something that I've kept with me as I've been going on this journey. And I think it's something that I'd really like to get across, in the sense of we've all got our salary expectations and what we need. But by sometimes taking that step down, you can overtake it a lot quicker. So it's just being open to the opportunities and not always being blinded by the money. So if you could just move the slides on for me, please. Thank you. So what is my career journey? Now, like every good story, there's a beginning, a middle and an end. So my beginning was the Royal Marines Band Service, as I've just said. I got medically discharged. I had to start again. At the time, I had a music degree. Unfortunately, my injury meant I couldn't continue with music anymore in any guise. And at the time I was on my own, so I had to get a job which enabled me to pay all of my bills. Now, going from nearly 15 years in the military to civilian life was a really difficult experience, and I'm sure you'll all find it difficult in your own ways, and it is a different journey for everybody. But as I'm leaving, I'm starting to ask myself lots and lots of questions. I just don't know what roles are available out there. Well, I don't know. You know, you suddenly get a new world opened up of, right, you can go and do anything you want to, but you start asking yourself the questions of, but I don't know what I want to do. I don't know what I can do. And so then you kind of start looking at what transferable skills have I got? And at the time, all I knew was being a musician in the military. So I couldn't do any of the physical stuff anymore, and I couldn't do music. So I didn't feel like I had any of that available. I had to make sure I could do my rehabilitation, that I could have a good work-life balance for my mental health, qualifications, salary. And so I spent quite a lot of time with the Royal Marines charity. And they were really good at taking that step back and going through my career. And it wasn't just focusing on what I'd done in my last few years through promotions or what have you, but the entire career, and being able to turn what we've done from a military life into something that's translatable to a civilian life. And that's something that I really would recommend, is map out your military career journey and everything you've done, because then when you are looking at the CVs or preparing your CV for the job descriptions, like Claire was saying, when you're looking for specific skills or examples where you've carried things out, you've already mapped out your career journey from the military. So you can pull on those different experiences that you've had, the different roles, the skills that you've learned, and tailor all of your CVs. So for myself, I ended up being put on a social value work experience programme with Kia. So this was in construction, which I knew nothing about. I spent 4 months working in social value with the social value manager, learning all about Kia. I got to see all of the different roles within construction, and I started getting involved with their work winning team. So for those of you who aren't aware, work winning within the business is what it does on the set. It says on the tin, we win the work. So we prepare all of the bids, the proposals, we manage the commercial teams to make sure we're putting forward the right price. You can have frameworks, which is effectively becoming a preferred bidder, preferred supplier, sorry. So then you have a smaller competition pool going forward, but you have to get onto that framework in the first place. So I then got offered a job with Kia as a submissions coordinator. So this comes back to taking the jobs with the opportunities. So I could see where my progression could go from this. So I then started with Kia as submissions coordinator. So my role involved pulling together all the proposals, managing the design teams. And a lot of these were done on 3-week turnarounds, and I could have up to 5 bids. I think at one point I had 5 bids, which had a total of 90 million that I was managing and coordinating at one time. So it was a very fast turnaround. It realised that my transferable skills, I had an eye for detail, the can-do attitude, I was results driven, agile, adaptable, and then calm in stressful environments was something that also got commented on about my abilities. So from this, I started to grow. I started to realise I really like the construction industry. So then I looked and I did a postgrad certificate in built environment studies, specialising in construction management, which then meant I could move on to the pre-construction side of things. So I would win the bid and then I would get everything set up ready to start on site. So I would be involved in the whole process from the bid arriving at Kia, and we would develop our proposals. I would then win the bid, and then I develop the design and the team and get everything ready to that day one on site. This was a really good role. It was really varied, and just the challenge in that, and the managing the teams, the coordination, having the analytical skills that you can really establish what the clients want all the time. It was just, you had to be a fast learner, or I did, certainly in that industry. From that, I then got asked if I'd lead the business development for Devon and Cornwall, because again, it's just my transferable skills. They'd realised at Kia that there was an element of, you could put me into a role, I'd take a grip of it and I'd run with it and I'd make it work. So I spent some time as business development, doing the stakeholder management, the communication. My curiosity really came into play here, in that I was trying to do all the market analysis and finding out where are the next opportunities coming from, how can I influence the business and the work that we're winning. Report writing, all of these types of things, which if you'd have asked me a couple of years before, I'd said I don't have any of these skills. But as I've gone through these roles, I've started to realise all of these things I learnt in the military, which are now coming into play. During this time, I decided to take my business improvement knowledge a bit further. So I did my Lean Six Sigma Black Belt, which just gives me a slightly different frame of mind as I'm going through these different roles. It's all about change management and just making everything as efficient as possible. So I'm a very process-driven person, and something that is across all of my roles is I've always gone in and revised the process and set up new processes, identified areas where things need to happen differently and changed it. I'm not somebody to sit back when I can see things to wait for someone else to do it. I get involved, and I think that's an ex-forces thing. We all know, you see something needs doing, you go and do it, and that's a great skill to have. So then I decided to take a step, so I went into junior bid manager. So this was at L3 Harris, and L3 Harris is a technology company for defence. And so as part of this role, I would manage all of their bids. So these bids went now for about a year at a time. So we were doing the software platform systems on ships and submarines and kind of things like that. So our bids were really long, and so you could really shape it, you could hone the process and just develop everything. So I was doing a lot of that alongside the business development. I moved to the bid manager, where you're obviously meeting your deadlines, you're process driven, applying the governance. Security clearance was a key part of my role at L3 Harris. And then I decided I want more. So this was where I've changed 3 jobs in the last 5 years, 6 years. I wanted to progress more. So this is my second career, and it has meant that I have progressed through the roles quicker, and I've had to move companies to progress as quickly as I want to. And that's something to bear in mind. And then as you're looking for your next company, really look at where that progression can go. What are the opportunities? You know, it works both ways, as in, are you giving to the company what they want, but are the company giving to you what you want? And so I started in October last year as a proposals manager in Costain. I actually went for a job, applied for a job as bid manager. And during my interview process, they decided that actually they wanted a proposals manager, which is a cross between a bid manager and an author. So I'm a bit of a jack of all trades. I can design the documents, write them, and do all the governance. focused on the smaller framework type opportunities at Costain, whereas previously we were very much focused on the mega bids. So the £1 billion ones, the big strategic, could be 6 months, a year long bids, which I was used to doing at L3 Harris, but the new proposals manager role brought in my experience of Kia, working on the 3-week turnarounds with my process driven work as a bid manager at L3 Harris, and the business development, put it all in a package and you've got a proposals manager. So I've been doing this for the last year. It's been really great. The opportunities at Costain have been good. And I'd honestly say that I think this is the first time I've felt that I fit at the company. The network I find is brilliant. So I think at Kia, I was always brought in through the charity route. So there was an element of being the charity case, and it was hard to get rid of that stigma. L3 Harris was great for development, but I worked with a lot of ex-forces people who used to refer to me by my old rank, and I just wasn't always that comfortable. And then at Costain, I'm here and I'm respected for being ex-military. People like that I'm ex-military and my approach to different things. The progression is good. So I've just found out that actually later this month, I'm getting promoted again to a frameworks proposals manager. And I can just see what's coming next. So as I come to the end of kind of my journey, I can see what's next for me. I can see my route to director, and I can see how all of my transferable skills in the driving, the change, the multitasking, the defence background, strategic outlook, all of these things are just growing and developing as I move through the roles to give me my future. And it's a really exciting place to be. And so all I would say to all of you listening to this is be excited about this. It's really daunting and it can be quite scary at times, but don't be afraid of going through a few different roles to find what fits you. Ask questions to find out the types of roles available. I had no idea any of these roles existed in the job market at all until you start asking people. So if you meet someone new, ask what they do. If you don't know what it is, ask them, find out more, do work placements. It's kind of just be open to these opportunities and just grab a hold of them and run with them, because you don't know what's going to happen next. Thank you.
So yeah, I'm Phil Carrott and I'm a principal consultant at Costain. So what am I going to talk to you about for the next 10 minutes or 15 minutes or so? So I'll talk about a little bit about my military background, how I found myself in Costain, and then I'll talk about what I've been doing at Costain since being here. So yeah, I was in the REME, the Royal Electrical Mechanical Engineers. So for those of you who aren't in the army or don't know the army, that's the bit of the army that fixes everything. So the soldiers that I worked with were vehicle mechanics, electronics technicians, logisticians, armourers, metalsmiths, recovery mechanics. So anyone who with a technical sort of engineering background who could fix stuff and maintain stuff, that's who I worked with. And in that service, nearly 20 years, I was in Germany. For 6 of those, I'd been all over the UK in various places, 3 tours of Iraq, 6 months in South Sudan with the United Nations. And then most recently, as I was leaving, I was an instructor at the Staff College, and I spent 6 months working for the Cabinet Office as part of the COVID-19 Response and Recovery Task Force. So a really varied career, but actually for those of you who are serving in the military or have served in the military, you'll recognise that as being pretty standard, that variety, that movement. I've got 2 young children, they're 5 and 4 now, and about 18 months ago, 2 years ago, we had 7 different school applications in because we didn't know where we were going to be posted, when we were going to be posted. We didn't know when we were going to find out, and all of that had become a little tiresome. My wife and I were just looking for stability, so we decided now is the time to leave the military, and we settled just outside York, and it was one of the best decisions I made. I think I've not looked back on that. I had a great time in the military, but leaving and settling the family was awesome. But I won't lie, it wasn't without its worry. It wasn't without concern. How am I going to pay a mortgage? That was a new thing for me. How was I going to make that transition out of the military into civilian life? And all of those things were difficult. And I was really fortunate to find Costain, to find a role, I think, that suited me, and to find an organisation that I think values me. When you leave the military, one of those funny things, actually, when you leave the military, everyone says to you, you'll never go adventurous training again. You'll never get a sports afternoon again. And all these glib, everything's rubbish on the outside, the grass isn't always greener kind of comments. And I've not really experienced that. Yeah, I don't go and play sports every Wednesday afternoon. That's true. But I did actually go back to Antarctica on an adventurous training type civilian expedition this time, earlier this winter, or end of last year, beginning of this year. Costain were one of the expedition sponsors, and I was asked if I'd like to join to replace someone who was injured. And within 48 hours, we'd had agreement from the Costain senior leadership team that I could take some extra leave and represent the company on a scientific research and educational outreach expedition. So the opportunities are there if you're willing to take them. Let's just jump to the next slide, please. So yeah, so I left the military, and why Costain? I think in my interviews, in my resettlement, I went on, like loads of people, the 2-day introduction to financial services sort of resettlement events. I had conversations and coffees with, goodness me, countless people from different industries and different companies. A little like Becky was saying, it was hard to understand almost what jobs there were in the real world, let alone which jobs I thought I might be able to fit in. So I made an effort to just talk to loads of people. And I ended up almost by accident talking to some people from Costain after one of these recruiting events. And it was in that conversation that I realized that Costain, although they were interested in my military background, it was far less formal than others. So some of the financial services organizations I spoke to, despite their 2-3 days of presentations and conversation, they might as well have just said, what rank were you? What cat badge were you? Right, that means you're going to come and do this job. And it was almost a black and white decision. There was no room for any discussion, and I didn't really fancy that. Whereas when I spoke with Costain, it was very much a little bit about what I'd done in the background, but more what were the skills I had, what could I offer, and where did I think I wanted to grow within the business. And that was brilliant. And so that's how I find myself in the portfolio program and project management consultancy team. I had one project management qualification that I'd done about 10 years ago. So it wasn't about the qualifications necessarily. It was just about my broad ability. And in my interview, I was fairly clear with Pete, my boss, that I didn't really want to work in defence, but I would if the business needed me to. And on joining, I found myself in Devonport with the Royal Navy and Babcock, setting up an operations cell, which helped to coordinate the day-to-day management and activity of the Devonport dockyard, which any of you in the Navy will know is pretty complicated, but also surprising that isn't one already, but that's another story. And when Pete first told me I was going into defence, I was a little bit disappointed, but actually I think it was a really good decision. I think Pete knew what he was doing. Well, Pete does know what he's doing, because the advantage of going into the defence world straight away, even though it was the Royal Navy, not the Army, so it was different for me, was that some of the language this was similar. So I had almost a soft landing, that I knew the defence environment, which meant it was relatively easy for me as I learned all the other skills of being part of Costain, understanding the business, understanding how we did things, the Costain way of doing things, and developed as a normal person. Not that military people aren't normal, but I think you know what I mean. And that was really useful. That was really good. It was a great 9 months down in Devonport. And it gave me a much better understanding of Costain as an organisation and how I could fit in, where I could fit in, and how I could contribute. Now, I say down in Devonport, you'll notice the bottom left of that slide, I say home base there. So loads of people at Costain, not all of us, because some people aren't, but loads of us are home based. And what that means is my day-to-day work is working from home. So I'm stood in my spare room in just outside York, but I go and visit the clients and our customers when they need me to. So with Devonport, when I first started, I went down almost every week for 2 or 3 days at a time to understand the client and understand their needs and to find out what they wanted. But once we'd settled into the rhythm a little bit more, I'd maybe go down once every 2 weeks or once a month, because that was all that was needed, because we'd set up that rapport and we understood that we could work remotely. Similarly, with some of my central government work that I've been doing recently, that would be maybe in London once a month, or you'd have a busy period. So this October, actually, I've been away. Sorry, September, I was away every week in September just for 1 or 2 nights, which isn't, that's what I signed up for, I think, and it's a really good balance, but that's predictable. It's not like, on a Friday I got told I've got to be somewhere on a Monday. I get some notice. and it's comfortable. I'm not staying in a transit accommodation, and I don't have the challenges of JPA to deal with for sorting out my claim. So it is good. It is good. So I worked with the Royal Navy in Babcock. I then went to Antarctica for 6-8 weeks, which was outstanding, as you might expect. And I came back to a role internally working with our energy sector. So the Costain energy sector covers traditional oil and gas. So we've got some technical engineers who work with the oil and gas sector, predominantly out of Aberdeen, but quite a lot of them are based in Manchester as well. But also we've got an energy transitions business. So people who are looking at hydrogen, solar, wind, how the transition for the UK's national energy can move from fossil fuels based to alternative sources of energy. And so we've got loads of really smart people working in those teams all across the UK, whether it's the South Wales Industrial Cluster, here in the Northeast in Teesside. And my role with that sector was just helping them to better manage their people. And that's not from a sort of an HR perspective, but it's terms of resource planning, we call it. So what people are needed on what projects, when are they needed, how do we communicate internally? And that was really good because I saw some positive benefits to my work. So I saw the changes in the team, and those changes have stuck. I was chatting to somebody a couple of weeks ago in Manchester, and they said the changes that I implemented, or I helped the team implement, it wasn't all me, of course, have stuck, and they're really useful now to help people work. And it was good for me to learn more about the energy sector, more about the energy transitions, and what we're doing as a business as Costain, which was great. I then moved to our central government team, partly because of my background from the Cabinet Office, but also because I was looking for an opportunity to learn more again about Costain and what we do. So I worked with our central government team, and that was helping to write tender responses, helping to identify opportunities where Costain can support central government. And also it was again half internal focused, which was helping the central government team understand the skills that we've got in our consultancy and engineering bits of the business and where they might be useful in central government. So it was two-facing really, that a bit of outwards to central government and a lot of internal to Costain. So a great opportunity. And then a move again, so which is I'm really looking forward to, back into defence and nuclear. The new role it's new. I'm not replacing anyone, so that's both an opportunity and a risk, I suppose, because there's a chance for me to shape that role into what I think would be good and what would play to my strengths. But also there's a risk that what I think might be good isn't necessarily what the business needs. So I need to make sure I stay aligned with all the various senior leaders that I'm going to work with. But in that role, I'm going to be supporting what we call campaign development. So the longer term, understanding what UK Ministry of Defence, the Army, the Navy, the Air Force, all the different services might need, and how Costain could support those bits of UK defence, and also the nuclear sector, both civil and defence nuclear. We've got work in the defence and civil nuclear industries, and how do we best continue to support that, and how can I bring my military experience to support some of my civilian experts, as it were, to getting Costain into the best position to do those things. A couple of other things on the bottom there. Line manager for 9 consultants. So when I was company commander, so a major equivalent is a squadron leader in the RAF, or a lieutenant commander in the Navy, I was in charge of 114 people. That was part of a NATO task force in Germany, and I didn't think that was a particularly large number. In the civilian world, 114 is quite a lot. So now I'm just in charge of 9 people, and it's great. I've got some principal consultants, so people who are the same grade as me, who I manage, and then one graduate, a couple of juniors, and a couple of consultants. So I help to line manage those people, and I don't control their work day to day. They're all working with their clients, with our customers. I'm just there to support them. Some of it's just admin, ticking the leave card, making sure that they've put their claims in correctly, and then some of it is actually is mentoring, coaching, understanding, listening, and helping to develop their careers and finding them the commissions with clients or the training opportunities to get them where they want to be in their career. And that's really, really enjoyable. I do enjoy that, as you might expect. And then I think my final point is about flexibility and trust. my contract that I signed, I remember signing my employment contract back in February last year, it must have been, and it was quite clear, 8 in the morning, 4:30 in the afternoon, 30 minutes for lunch. And I thought, this is all very strange. We had never had anything like this in the military. Obviously, we had parades and things, but but actually, that's not the lived experience. The lived experience is very much that I have my work to do, and I have the hours that I should do it in, and I do my work. And some weeks I have a busy week, and I might work more than my 40 contracted hours, because that's the nature of where it is. Especially if I'm traveling, I'll find myself away and working longer hours. But within that is the trust that I will do my work. So there's also flexibility. This morning I had to take the car to get MOT'd, so I didn't turn my laptop on until 9:15, I think it was. And nobody's chasing me or harassing me or questioning that. They know that that's the sensible grown-up attitude. Now, clearly, if I had to service my car every Monday morning until 10:30, my boss would suddenly notice that that was not appropriate. But I really enjoy the Costain way of working, that we trust people to do their job. And when you're with a client, you understand that you have to work to the client's timings, and that's great. And it is a really enjoyable place to be, and it's a nice place to be. Having been in some military places, I would admit, that weren't necessarily as nice, shall we say. But yeah, Costain's been really good to me. They, I think, have valued me for what I can give to the business, not what I did in my military career. And there are some great opportunities, I think, for me moving forward. So I think I will stop there and then hand back to Angela.
Yeah, thank you. I was just going to finish off with a little bit more about kind of working at Costain, why Costain, and a little bit of a link to you and the military community. So as I've mentioned, and you've seen these already at the start, we've got these core values and core behaviours, and you will recognise these. A number of organisations are going to have very similar core values and behaviours, and you will have seen these in the military as well. There's certainly links there: being courageous, integrity, those sort of elements. What we're trying to bring in now with some of these core values is that environmental and social responsibility. And I'm sure Becky will be able to talk about this, but we're putting this into our bids, winning work, making sure that this is really a key part of what we do and how we deliver it, making sure that it's part of, as we get work, as we tell people what we're going to do and how we're going to build things, whether that's digitally or physically. This is a really key part of it. So we're trying to build that up, and part of that improving people's lives is bringing in that network, that understanding across those 6 employee networks. So I'm, as I've mentioned at the start, I'm the chair of the Services and Service Families Network, and a really important thing that's happened just last week is that we've re-signed the Armed Forces Covenant. And I think sometimes it's seen as a bit of a tick box exercise. Every organisation signed it. There's now, I think, over 5,000 organisations in the country that have signed the Armed Forces Covenant, which is great. But what does that actually mean? And what does that mean for us as employees? Well, Costain's actually made a really good commitment. They've updated their commitment, having since signed it a few years ago. And the CEO was there last week at the MOD to talk about what Costain does and how they value us as a service community. So yeah, we've got the network, organise events, social meetings. We're just that kind of community, and we're bringing in kind of a mentoring and buddying service to be able to support people who are new to the industry, people who've had different experiences, and an opportunity to talk to like-minded people and connect with them, who may have a bit of an understanding of what it is you're going through. So that's really good and really useful. But we're also doing a lot on the recruitment side. Clearly, we're partnered with Buildforce, which is great and providing an avenue in, but we're also working with the Forces Families Jobs Forum, so working on that family side as well, the spouses. In terms of other kind of policy commitments, we've got a reserve policy in place. So if you are planning on leaving and continuing to serve through a reservist banner, we offer 2 weeks of paid leave for training, and there is a mobilisation policy as well. So Costain will support if you have to mobilise under that reserve banner. we've also just added in something around the adult cadet volunteers, and supporting them with pretty much the same package as the reservists. So actually allowing people to do their training that's not just in their own annual leave, which is really good. And wider than that, wider than the services, we provide 2 volunteering days annually for everyone, whichever volunteering you want to do, whatever organisation that's for you're volunteering for, 2 freebie days that you don't have to take out of your own annual leave, to go and support charities, organisations that are doing good. And again, that kind of fills into those values, that social responsibility. And then the biggest one I think that's kind of come out this year with the re-signing is that we are now offering an interview for all serving personnel that are transitioning to civilian life, and people that have transitioned and are within 5 years of leaving the military, to anyone that meets the minimum criteria. So trying to negate that kind of mistranslation of CVs if there's a difficulty translating exactly what you've done. We're trying to negate that by offering you an interview, getting you through that CV sift. And you'll be able to have that engagement with hiring managers and really get across what your capabilities are. So really the point of this, just to finish off, was just to show that we've got some really strong core values and are actually living those. The business is supporting those from the top. They're very supportive of us as a service community and are always looking for opportunities to do more. Yeah, it's a great place for me to have been for the last year and a bit. And I think you've heard the stories from Becky, Phil, and Claire as well. We're all happy to be here. We feel very well supported, and yeah, great. We're happy to answer any questions that you've got. So I'll hand back to Angela. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Neil. Thank you very much. If I could ask all our speakers to put their cameras back on. We'll just take those slides down. A couple of questions have come in, which I'll pick up on. If you do have a question, please raise your hand. So listen, thank you, everyone. That was fantastic. So great to hear more about Costain as well. So a couple of quick questions. I'll fire them over to you. Neil, with you first. You said that you chair the services and service family community. So picking up on Richard's question, is there a formal military community with Costain, or once onboarded, does that service leaver or veteran at the mercy of their line manager, or is there a more formal structure? You mentioned buddying and mentoring, I think.
Yeah, so it's all, as a network, we're there to support people that want to be supported. This is not that when you come through the door, you're going to be forced our way and forced into some sort of military transition program at all. We're there as a kind of social and voluntary community that we can support you. There's loads of other support out there as well. So yeah, we'll be able to link you in with people who've had similar experiences, whether that's within our network of people that have transitioned at a similar time, gone into a similar role. There's loads of people out there that are really keen to help you. In terms of training, there's loads of training that's within the organisation, and it can be tailored for you. It's not one training package, and as Phil said, it's not that we'll see a cap badge and a rank and tell you this is the training programme you'll go on to. But there's plenty of training and support, and everybody management wise is very supportive, and I think we can say that from experience rather than just a corporate view. Everybody has been very supportive of all of us in different ways. So there's loads of stuff there.
Okay, and another part of, sorry, yeah, Becky.
Sorry, I was just gonna, if you don't mind, I was just gonna add to that on the training, just from my slightly longer experience, and the fact that we've got access to the enhanced learning credits and how we use those. So I've used mine. So my initial ones I got HR level 3 because I was panicking and didn't know what to get. But I've then used mine to do my postgrad in construction management and my Lean Six Sigma black belt. And then I've also had companies put me on courses. So like I've done my APMP practitioner in bid management and things like that. So really look at your enhanced learning credits and how they can help your career as well, to build on that training aspect, because it just, as soon as you start finding your path, you can then use your qualifications to start building a bigger foundation to progress further. So sorry, I just wanted to...
No, thank you, Becky. And I was actually going to throw a question to you and Phil. Another part of Richard's question is, were you expected to pick up the ball and run on day one? What do those first couple of days and weeks look like with that first company after your resettlement?
If I go first, mine
Yeah.
was slightly different. I did the 4-month work placement. So I had that really gentle introduction in where everybody knew that I was still serving at the time. I still had to go and attend camp a couple of days a week to do all my rehab and doctor's appointments and everything else. So I had a really gentle introduction in, but it's still really difficult in that I found I was just like an alien because I wasn't working with anybody else ex-forces. I spoke a different language. They did all these different jobs that I'd never heard of. And so it does take time. I found it isn't a case that you can just go in on day one and know, because as I said before, I didn't know what my transferable skills were until I started performing the roles, and then I became aware of them kind of as I was doing it. So I think it's kind of a lot of self-reflection and also just being open to different things. But I don't think there is an expectation that you will just go in and be able to do your job, because we all know it doesn't matter what job you go into, civilian or as a civilian or an ex-military personnel, you will still have to learn the new job as you go. I think there is always an element of bedding in as you go. So that was kind of my take. Phil?
I think, yeah, I tend to agree. So my experience was Costain was my first civilian job out of the military, and there's I smile because it's dull. There's two or 3 weeks of very dull sitting, a bit like your annual training test sometimes in the military. You're sitting at work, clicking through some online learning about health and safety, bribery and corruption training, the mandated training that you have to do in any new job. And whilst I smirk and say that it's boring and all online, actually some of it's what it is good for is you do get a bit of, for some of the modules anyway, you get a better sense of the organisation. So at Costain we have a corporate induction that runs every couple of months, and it had been, I think it's going back to in person, but it's been virtual because of COVID. So you will do that with people from everywhere in the business. It's not particular to your sector. So that's good to meet people across the business and understand what they do. And are you expected to turn up, pick up the ball and run on the first day? I think there is a realization that if you come as a principal consultant, more is expected of you than if you come as a junior consultant. But then you know that already, Richard. Depends where you're coming into the business. But my advice for all of this is to ask questions, not in an aggressive, trying to catch people out way, in a genuinely inquisitive way, because people will talk in a language that they're used to because they've been speaking it, and they'll use an abbreviation or an acronym that everybody knows. Now, or not everybody, because I don't. So I've just moved to the defence team. I've been with Costain for 18 months, and there are still there's still acronyms and abbreviations that people use that I don't know. So this week I've learned that CLR is a contract leaders review, and that happens every month, where a contract leader sits down with the senior leadership team to go through the financials of their project, the timings, all of internal governance. But CLR, well, I think that was a combat logistics regiment when I was in the army. I don't know, there's loads of things. So you'll never know everything. I mean, Alex Vaughan's our chief executive, and he's been at Costain for 30 years. He joined as a quantity surveyor, and I think he would admit that he will learn things every day. So there is a balance of that. But thankfully at Costain anyway, people are friendly. They want you to learn and they want you to get on. So it's good like that.
And that's the theme, isn't it? Everybody's there to support you as you land and to make sure that you do well, Richard. So everybody's on side. A question to Claire. So thank you for your guidance on the application and for sharing the types of roles, which was incredibly useful. So Edward has asked a question around entry requirements for the role. So where would you be able to find out if, for a project management role, if Prince 2 or Agile or APM's needed? Where would you find out for site management if you need NEBOSH or IOSH or SMSTS? Where's all that information?
So if you go to our careers website, on each role, it should list the essential and the desirable qualifications for each role. It really depends on each role to be taken kind of in its own merit, whether it's the qualification, whether it's applicable experience to that kind of level. It can't be stipulated sometimes, but we have certain roles where there are minimum qualifications. So like safety roles, especially when we're working with our clients, they expect kind of NEBOSH qualification. Site roles then, where you have site supervisors or site managers, the SMSTS or the triple STS, the site managers safety training scheme by the CITB. Things like that are really, really useful. Most of our construction projects, you'll need a CSCS card, so a construction skills certification scheme card, if I can get my words out. But that's a kind of given. That's if you walk onto site, you need to have one of those, where you do a short health and safety test and have the right qualifications to get you to that role. So it varies, but you should be able to find on each one. And I would still ask, even if it does say a minimum required, I would still ask the question.
I was going to ask that. Yeah, it's sometimes for some companies it's a guide, for others it's a go no go, but it's always worth challenging and asking. Thank you for that, Claire. Becky, a few questions for you. I did smile actually when you were talking about your social value work experience brought you closer to construction. Can I ask, do you remember what your initial perception of construction was? Good or bad?
Yeah, so I think I was really surprised at the different roles. I guess I'd never really considered how things got built. And so I think my walking in and starting to speak to people and realizing how many people were involved, and not just on site, but the biggest surprise to me was everything that happened behind the scenes, and certainly this whole winning work aspect, which I'm obviously a part of now, but I just never really considered. When you take a step back, obviously it's pretty obvious that you'd need it, but it was the sheer amount of roles for construction. And I also got the bug going on site. I really loved all my site visits. Yeah, and any excuse to get and have a look around site and ask the questions and everything like that was always fantastic.
Yeah, we definitely encourage that. And you talked through your various roles. You mentioned your military skill set was able to shine through. What specifically were those skills? And the reason I ask is to give some inspiration to the service leavers that are drafting their CVs at the moment.
So the calm in stressful environments, working in bidding, that was a key one that got picked up very quickly. When everyone else was panicking around me, I was very calm and in control of everything. I knew who had to do what when, and I just made sure it got done. So that was something that they really liked about me. It's the results driven. I did find as an ex-forces person that I'm used to when somebody asks me to do something, I will go and do it. People picked up on that, which then meant when other people didn't do things, it was always a go to Becky because she'll get it done. And so we do have that kind of attitude if we get things done, which I think is something which is really key. The managing the teams, the coordination, communication. Certainly for me, from the band service, I was used to dealing with all levels of people up to VVIPs, royalty, and everything like that, down to just going and playing a junior eights bar or what have you. You know, it was all levels that I was used to dealing with, and I think a lot of people are like that in the military, where you can communicate at all levels. And so I'd say that was a key one. The meeting the deadlines. I was trying to think, kind of your strategic outlooks, your driving change, just having that drive, I guess, is a big one. We've all got that certain attitude that we take to whatever we do, because you wouldn't have been in the military without it. So there's a few, but happy to, if people have got any questions or want to take it further, then please connect and I'll do what I can to help.
Okay, thank you for that offer. And one other question, you mentioned the fit. Do you think that fit with an organisation should lead the search for a role as someone is going through their resettlement, or is it just one of the factors?
I think it is a really, really key important. And one thing I would stress is that it's not that I didn't fit at my previous roles, but I just felt much more comfortable. And I think that was part of my journey and part of my growth and finding where I wanted to go. And in order to do that, I just happened to go through the previous roles. But there's definitely a lot more comfort and I guess confidence. I felt I was lacking a lot of confidence previously, and now I'm surrounded by people who are always pumping my tires up. They're really open about what it is I bring to the team, and they are championing me, and it's amazing to be in a team where people are doing that for you. So you just get this inherent confidence, which is sometimes harder to get, and so that's where it comes from. It might take a while to find your fit, and maybe that's something that I hope my journey might show people, is you might not find it in your first job or your second or your third, fourth, fifth, sixth, however many it might take, but it will be there eventually, and it might just take a few steps to get there.
Okay, and on the theme of confidence, a question to Philip. I liked how you defined your role as a manager, mentoring, guiding and supporting. Is there a confidence within you as a manager to enable that style?
I smirk. I mean, I'm a former army officer. So I'm as arrogant as they come sometimes. So
Okay.
I think, and this will sound arrogant, but I don't mean it to be. Is when I left and I was joining the civilian workforce, I was hugely uncertain about whether any of the skills that I had actually had any value. I had a conversation with somebody once who said that leadership isn't a skill, that people want you to have a hard, you're going to construction, well, you need to have a master's or a bachelor's in construction if you're going into this role, or you need to have this very specific construction qualification, and you've got to have deep sector experience, and no one's interested in you. And I did find a little of that in some industries, that it was, if you're not a chemical engineer, you can't work in the chemical engineering company, in a chemical engineering company. What I've learned since leaving is that's not necessarily true. Absolutely, I am not a piping designer. I can't go and do some of the work that our piping designers do for our, high pressure hydrogen gas systems. That's not me. But I've understood that what I've bought from the military is an ability to understand people and to understand what they do. And Costain recognised that. It might not be the same in all organisations. It might not be the same in all companies, but in Costain it is. And I was given the opportunity to come and bring myself to work and be seen what I could offer. And that's why I'm moving to this new role in defence and nuclear. If the boss didn't think I could do that, he wouldn't have offered me the job. It's really difficult. Your first job's the hardest one to get, I think. And when you go on career transition workshops and all these sort of recruiting events, people will talk about the hidden jobs market and the advertised jobs market and all of these different conversations. And really talking to people, not in a job interview. I got my Costain job by meeting a lady called a lady from the team who's our head of project controls. I met her at a recruiting event and I just said, can I have a conversation, because I don't really know what I'm doing? And she was really good. She gave me half an hour, 40 minutes, and we just had a chat. And then we had another chat and she said, have a chat with this other guy, who then said, right, apply for this job. I still had to apply for a job. I still had to go through the process. I still had to put in a CV and do an interview. But in that conversation, some sensible things came out of it. I had other conversations with other people in my transition who didn't phone me back. And I got a bit disheartened for a while, and then I realised that never mind, it doesn't matter. Things will come. You'll be okay. So yeah, there's obviously I've got the confidence in there. But if you're leaving the military, you can be confident that there will be a role for you somewhere. And Becky said it. It doesn't matter if you come to a firm and it doesn't work out. No one's going to be offended. You're not going to let anyone down. We've had people in our team, nothing to do with the military, who joined, did a month, and then left because it didn't like it, which is not ideal. But that happens, and people are accepting and grown up to this. Yeah.
And did you find that stability, that work-life balance, which was the driver for leaving the armed forces?
Oh yeah, definitely. Because although I still go away, some weeks 4 nights a week, some weeks 1 night a week, some months I won't go away at all. So there isn't routine, but there's stability because it's plannable. I know what's coming up in the diary. There's very rarely is anything last minute. And people are just a bit more grown up and sensible about it. And if someone asked me to go to a meeting next week, short notice, and I said, I'm really sorry, I can't, my wife's away with her work, people would understand that. Whereas certainly in my military experience, there was well, suck it up, you chose to have a wife and children. Thanks for that. So there is a little bit more, there is a sensible attitude. And that's not because I'm a principal consultant, that's at every grade. Every position in our organization, people are trusted, and it's the element of, we are all trusted to be grown up, adult and responsible until we give someone an opportunity to think that we're not. And I think that's across the business. I noticed a question from Jack about success stories of soldiers joining Costain, and that's definitely there. I know I'm an ex-officer, so people might think that you've got to be a 20-year officer to come into these roles, but we've definitely got soldiers. One of the guys in my team is a Royal Engineers corporal. Although he was in the Royal Engineers, I think his last couple of years were all in the gym as a physical training instructor, and he's now a project manager. He's been working with National Highways on their concrete roads program. So yeah, there's soldiers in the business as well, or former soldiers in the business as well, not just officers and NCOs.
Brilliant, thank you for that. A few questions towards Neil and Claire. What are the opportunities for work experience and spending time in the different departments? Claire, I'll ask that to you.
Yeah, no worries. Yeah, we're definitely open to any kind of suggestions. We do obviously advertise our roles that we have listed, but welcome for anyone to get in contact, and we can definitely see what we can do.
Okay, and Caroline, to you as well, just some experience from, or just some feedback that we've had from individuals that have done work experience.
Well, yeah, I mean, work experience is, conduit to employment, even though the employment isn't attached to the experience. If you perform well and there's an opportunity in that business, then whether it's then or a few months down the line, it generally leads to employment. It's also a fantastic try before you buy on both sides. You might get on site and you might absolutely hate it. So you know that you don't want to do that. Equally, you might love it, but you won't know until you try it. So it's a really good way to explore that discipline. And if there's a couple of disciplines that you're not quite sure which way you want to go, then you can try both if you give yourself the time.
Okay, another question for Claire. Where in the UK can you be based?
Anywhere. I would probably say.
Sorry,
whether it's sat in your home office or dining room, or so our head office is Maidenhead, but we've got offices in London, in Manchester, in Wall, in Bristol. So, and we've got them projects spread throughout the country, so literally nationwide.
Okay, thank you. And just going back to the theme around the ranks from the soldier all the way up, I think probably from what you were saying, Philip, is just stick with it. So your confidence may dip, but surround yourself by networking, surround yourself by colleagues, by veterans that are in industry, and just to give yourself that comfort that your journey, you will get there.
Something will come. I've been amazed. It's actually since leaving. In the last 2 months. I mean, I'm in the northeast. I'm just outside York. I've been invited to 3 different veterans recruiting events by 3 different veterans recruiting organisations in the northeast. They exist and they're out there, and people want to hire veterans. There's a genuine thing for that. So it's hard. I know it's hard when you're serving, especially if you're a junior. I was an officer. I could just skive off work and no one really asked me where I was going, and I just make up my own diary. If you're a junior rank, it is much harder to take the time to do your resettlement. And if you've got a particularly officious NCO, they'll be by the letter, or you can't have that afternoon because your resettlement thing is only by day. And it is really difficult, and I do understand that. But some of these events are virtual, some of these events are online or on weekends, so make the most of it. And also, if there's, let's just say, a veterans recruiting event in Leeds tomorrow, and you can't go tomorrow, find the name of the person organising it and send them a message and say, look, I can't come to that thing. Are you doing a video, or can I have a call, or do you think I should chat to somebody? Because it's those conversations that shape where you're going to go. If you'd have asked me 2.5 years ago where I was going to end up, I think I'd have told you financial services in central London, or professional services working from home but always on client site while I'm not there. Because having spent some time with the financial services, I quickly realised that was not an environment I wanted to work in. Yeah, the money's amazing, but it's not where I wanted to be. The sort of pure professional services organisation, similarly, I've got a friend who's at the Boston Consulting Group, whose basic salary is £113,000 a year. And I was like, gee, that's amazing. That's so much money. But that person works on average a 60-hour week. He's not had a weekend where he hasn't worked for the last 6 months, at least one of the days. And he hates it and he's going to leave. So that's not to say the Boston Consultants Group's bad. I've worked with some BCG guys and girls, and they're awesome. And they're a great organisation, but they're not for everybody. So and I wouldn't have known that if I'd not had conversations and just been bold, sent someone a message. And if they ignore you, send them another one. If they ignore you again, well, never mind. Find someone else. The world's a big place. You'll be all right.
The world is a big place. And Becky, that determination, that resilience, enjoying the journey, that's the thing, that's the advice that you would give to others, because you were medically discharged. But again, you did enjoy that transition, didn't you?
Yeah, and I mean, enjoying transition is probably a difficult way to put it, I guess, because it can be potentially really isolating and lonely, and there's some really difficult sides to it too, which is whereas the Forces Network, we're trying to identify those people and create those buddies, because it is a really difficult time, and I think it's okay to say that it's difficult. It's okay to say if you're struggling during that time as well, and everybody has a different reason for leaving. But yeah, I mean, I came out as a junior rank. I didn't really know my level in a civilian workplace. I still sometimes struggle with the rank structure, in that in my head, everybody's got a rank and I can't talk to them because they're that rank, or I can talk to them because they're that rank. And it's getting rid of that mindset, or just diluting it so that it doesn't impact the way you do your role. And I can go in, and as part of my role, I have to lead teams where I'm leading people a lot more senior to me, but my role is to lead that team to create a winning bid, and I have to get the information at them and I have to get the results. So in some ways I could be the lowest ranking person in the room, but I'm actually the one in charge, and they all have to do what I say. And that kind of flip is a very weird environment to be in, coming from ex-military, because you can't imagine a junior rank going into the officers' mess and going, right, you lot are going to do what I say today, because it just doesn't happen, does it? So yeah, it is having that confidence, and also don't put yourself in a box, because it is all open. And it comes back to my initial thing of look for the opportunities, because you can grow, and you can grow really quickly if you want to. So certainly for me, coming as a junior rank, I had to take a step down or 2 steps down, but I very quickly overtook and am far superseding what I would have been if I'd stayed in the band service. So, you know, it is have that a bit of a long-term game plan rather than just look at the immediate what's in front of you.
Thank you. And Neil, you would concur with that? Just your career can almost be bigger and better than it was in the armed forces. You're seeing that with your counterparts?
Absolutely. And echoing what Phil said, if you asked me a few years ago what I'd be doing now, I'd probably think, well, I've got a Navy background, project management, Babcock, maybe BAE, just an easy option. I would not have thought that I would be working in the digital arm of a national infrastructure business, looking at product management and processes on digital. There's lots of opportunities that have come up, and the same internally here, the same as Becky. I've had some conversations that have led to opportunities, and because I've been confident, gone for it, said, yeah, I think I could probably do that. I've got some experience leading a team or building a process, or I think I can see a better way to do this. I've ended up in a role that's much further on than where I would have been in the military, just through building those connections, having a bit of confidence, doing a bit of training here and there. And yeah, it's been some great opportunities that have come along from that.
Fantastic, thank you. Well, listen, thank you to Neil, Claire, Becky and Philip for the incredible contribution today, and to our military community. What an incredible organisation Costain is, so sitting across these fascinating sectors with rich, challenging roles and supportive of the military community. So you are not alone. BuildForce are here to support and guide you as you transition. Please get in touch if you have any questions to help you take this further, and we can connect you within Costain. So I'll pass back to Caroline for some final insights.
Thanks, Angela. I have to say, and I know I often say that was my favourite one, but I really enjoyed the stories. They were so different. They were sort of full of so much flavour, really interesting journeys. And I must say, Neil, that was our youngest member on the panel yet. So thanks for bringing it to the team. So thank you. Really do appreciate it. I mean, listening to your stories is why we do these virtual career chats, because they are inspiring and there are people listening, and you'll hopefully inspire them to get on with it today. So next week we have probably the biggest week, one of the busiest weeks for BuildForce team coming up, kicking off with our fantastic Armed Forces Insight Day on the Thursday, 13th of October, where you'll be able to meet face-to-face companies like Costain. Costain will be there amongst others. An excellent opportunity for you to engage. Every organisation there is recruiting nationally, but it's also a good opportunity to explore the sector further, better understand where your transferable skills fit within those organisations. So please, if you haven't booked a spot, please do. It's an event not to be missed. And as Angela alluded to it earlier, we have a BuildForce team of runners, including myself. I'm feeling quite sick and the weather is awful today, and I've got to get out and do some miles. So we have a team of veterans, mentors and employers. It's been cancelled twice. Unfortunately, it's not been cancelled again. We will be running on Sunday, the 16th of October. But we mustn't forget the cause and why we're running. It's something very dear to our hearts as runners, and also a very important part of the Build Force programme. Becky alluded to it earlier, that transition can be lonely, can be stressful. So it's raising awareness of mental health and suicide within our veteran and armed forces community. So please do donate, show your support, go to our website, the donation button is on there. So thank you all and have a good week. That's a wrap from Build Force and our speakers. Many thanks. Bye.
Thank you, everyone. Bye.
Thanks. Bye-bye.